I can't quite believe we have reached the end of another season of Show Up and Be Heard, which means we are also about to head into another school holiday. This podcast has always been about showing up in a way that feels right for me and helping you show up in a way that feels right for you, which is exactly why I design each season to fit around real life, because running a business isn't about pushing through exhaustion just to tick a box. So in today's wrap-up episode, I want to leave you with a friendly reminder about something I'm really passionate about, something I believe more businesses need to not only hear, but fully embrace. It's going to be kind of like a permission slip to do things your way, and I cannot wait to dive into it with you. But before I do, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to tune in, to show up and be heard, whether this is your first episode or you have listened to every single one. This podcast exists to help women like you simplify your business and your life so that you can stop feeling so overwhelmed. I am your host, Becky McAvoy, owner and founder of Be Heard Socials, and I am an award-winning social media marketer and international speaker who specializes in content strategy and organic growth on social media. Through this podcast, as well as my own social media, email community, and my award-winning membership, the Boss Your Socials Club, my mission is to cut through the noise to make social media marketing accessible and easy to understand for businesses that can't afford to outsource or who don't have the teams required to implement most of the advice that is being given to them. So if you want to cut through the noise and BS and get practical, actionable advice tailored specifically to make social media marketing accessible and easy to understand, or if you want to be part of a supportive community where women entrepreneurs can feel connected and inspired to achieve their dreams, then keep listening, because you are in the right place. And there are a whole hub of episodes you can go back and listen to if you haven't already. To get more tips like the ones you hear in this podcast, make sure you join my email community through the link in the show notes. Right then, let's get started with this week's episode. I can't believe we've got to the end of another season of Show Up and Be Heard. Honestly, I absolutely love this podcast. It was one of the best things I did to decide to launch it. It's a lot of hard work, don't get me wrong, and sometimes it's exhausting, but I just love it. And when we get to the end of a season, I always feel really reflective, and I just always take time. I mean, I always feel grateful to everybody who listens, but particularly at the end of a season, I just take time to be really grateful for you all. And that might sound silly. Like, I hope it sounds genuine, because it absolutely is. I'm just grateful to you for taking time out of your day to listen to what I have to say. I am grateful to you whether you've listened to all the episodes, you just dip it in and out when it's, aligns with something that you want to hear, or whether this is your first episode that you're listening to and you go off and listen to other ones. I'm really grateful to you. I am grateful so much to everybody who has sent me nice messages to tell me what their takeaways have been, to tell me something they've learned, to tell me that they appreciate what I've said, or it was something they need to hear. Honestly, that lights me up and it fills my whole heart with joy. I'm grateful to the people that said they've shared it with people that needed to hear it too. I'm grateful to you if you've left reviews. I am just so grateful for you. And I mean that with every ounce of my body. This isn't just something I feel like I need to say. I really mean it. So to start off today, I just want to say a massive, massive thank you to you. But today I also want to talk about something else. I want to talk about something I'm really, really passionate about, and something that I think all business owners need to hear, not just once, but over and over again until they fully embrace it and genuinely believe it and actually start putting it into action. And that is the idea of rejecting the need to feel busy or to be busy all of the time. The need to be busy, to feel worthy or to feel valuable or anything like that. We need to stop glorifying being busy, and we need to start embracing slowing down, rest, taking a break, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. If you've been here a while, you'll know that my seasons run around the school holidays. And that's a choice I made on purpose, because one of my worries when I was setting up the podcast was that however much I loved it, it would be too much extra work. And so I made the decision. I was like, right, I'll run it around the school holidays. I won't overwhelm myself, because for me, it's practicing what I preach. Success was never going to be about how many episodes I churned out, how consistent I am with downloads, hitting any particular numbers, or whether I should, and I say should in air quotations, be showing up week after week because that's what people tell me I have to do. It was about making it right for me. And it was about, I talk a lot in social media. I like to, where I can never say the word should or you need to do this. And that was the way that I wanted to approach a podcast, because success for me, genuinely, and I mean this, is about prioritizing rest, being present for the things that really matter to me, and not working myself into exhaustion, and not like just remembering that doing my best doesn't mean working myself to the point of some kind of mental breakdown or burnout or exhaustion, because that's not what it's about for me. And we can hear lots of people say that, but I more and more over time and genuinely embracing that. And I will not sacrifice that. And I will not sacrifice the ability to have that rest and to be present. At the moment, it's to be present around my young family, but sometimes it's around friends. What that will look like, what I'm doing doesn't necessarily mean it's right. It's just what's right for me. And I'm not willing to sacrifice, to do anything that sacrifices that, basically. And today I would like to invite you to do the same, to stop glorifying being busy and recognize that you don't always have to be doing. And like I said, you don't have to do it for the same reasons as me or in exactly the same way as me. Like, I'm inviting you to take some time to reflect yourself and think about what that means for you and what success looks like for you, and how much of what you're doing is because you think you should be doing it, or you've been told by somebody that you should be doing it. Like, let's be honest, we live in a world that loves busy. Hustle culture, I feel like, might be dying off a little bit, and like, I am all for that, but it's still very much ingrained in everything that we do. And it tells us that success comes from always being on, always doing more, and that rest is something you've got to earn. But the truth, like, and God, I've learned this the hard way, is that rest isn't a reward. It is a necessity. And like I said, I've learned this the hard way. I learned it in my employed life. I've learned it since becoming a mum, but I see it a lot with small business owners, and I see it especially with women. The guilt of stepping away, the feeling that if you're not constantly creating, posting, selling, networking, whatever else you're being told to do, then somehow you're failing. Somehow you're not being a good enough business owner. But busy doesn't equal productive, and busy doesn't equal success. And it certainly doesn't equal successful if success comes at the cost of your well-being and the cost of your mental health. You are allowed to pause. It is okay to pause. And I'm going to repeat that again. You are allowed to pause. One of the most powerful things that I've done in my business and in my life actually altogether is allowing space. That's why my podcast follows a seasonal model. It's why I decided it from the start. However, I'm going to tell you something about that in a minute, actually. If I decided it from the start, it was going to run around the school holidays. But the reason I decided that when I started was because I want to show up here when I have the energy, when I have the ideas, the creativity and the capacity to do so, not because I feel like I have to, just to keep up. Now, I was going to say, I'll tell you a bit more about that in a minute, because I completely understand the irony of me saying I'll do less and this is what success means to me, whilst an episode is still going out. But here's the thing, I am setting this episode up for the future. So the first time this is going out is actually during a half term, and going forward, it will be the episode that goes out in the last week before the school holidays at the end of every season. So that listeners who come back and see that there's been nothing new for a while will understand why. They'll understand that the podcast hasn't stopped. It's just I'm taking a break. That season's come to an end. And sometimes I'll be back the following week because it's only a week-long half term. Sometimes it might be a couple of weeks because it's the Easter holidays, or sometimes it might be 6 or 7 weeks because it's the summer holidays, or 2 weeks at Christmas, whatever it might be. There's no consistency in it other than I am running it around the school holidays. So I want this episode in here because it's important to manage expectations and for people to know when I'm going to be back, but also so that you know, like, there is consistency around it because the consistency is the school holidays. But like I said, there's no consistency necessarily in the break. Sometimes it will be for a week. Sometimes it will be for longer. Like I said just now that from the very start of deciding to do this podcast, from the launch of the podcast, that I do this, and I'm doing it now. But this has kind of come about, and the reason I'm doing this episode is in season 2. So basically I had season 1 and then it was the summer holidays. So I absolutely went for a break because the summer holidays are long. If you're a parent, you will be with me. So I took that break. But in season 2, my plan was to stop for a week at half term and then stop for the Christmas holidays. But I got really overexcited and I still put an episode out through half term. And I was like, oh, do you know what? I'm not going to stop for half terms because it's only a week long. And it's fine. I'll just do an extra episode. And it wasn't coming from a bad place. It was coming from a well-intentioned place. I was really excited about the podcast. I had loads of people applying for it. I felt like I was letting people down if I couldn't fit them all in for interviews. And I still feel guilty. I've got a list as long as my arm of people who I'm desperate to speak to and interview and talk to podcast that I haven't been able to. And my solution to that in season 2 was do you know what? I'll just get an extra episode. I'll just do one more. It's fine because I'm really enjoying it. I'm excited about it. But in hindsight, that just added more work and it made me start to resent it. It meant I overscheduled my calendar. It meant I was exhausted. It meant I worked more than school hours. And one of my goals is to only work school hours. I missed a couple of bedtimes. So this is practicing what I preach. And actually, up until this is why this episode, for the first time that you're ever going to listen to it, went out in a half term, because I decided really impulsively in the moment that I wasn't going to just create another episode. I was going to create an evergreen episode that could go out at the end of every season. It's me practicing what I preach and learning from my, like I said, well-intentioned mistakes. So I want to ask you, if you're listening to this, where in your life or business are you filling space just to be busy? Where are you pushing yourself when actually a pause would serve you better? What would it look like if you gave yourself permission to not be doing all the time? Because that's basically what I've just done. And I haven't just done it with the podcast. I've just spent quite a lot of time reflecting on where I'm filling space just to be busy. Am I using my time productively? And I've cut back on loads of different stuff. I am very fortunate to have a virtual assistant who really helps me out. I've reflected on what tasks I can pass over to her because I was doing things that I felt like I just should be doing or it needed to be me. And I've spent a lot of time asking myself these questions. And like I said, I've made various different changes in my business, but one of those was not to record an episode for the half-term week of, at the time of first recording this episode is February 2025. And I decided to record this episode because I needed to pause. But I also looked at it and went, well, I can't just not do an episode because I haven't wrapped up the season. So I'm doing this episode and this is now going to go out at the end of every season. And hopefully, even if you've listened to it before, I'd love to know if you're listening to this the first time or the second time, because I think we regularly need to check in on ourselves. Like I said, this is something I'm really passionate about. I'm really passionate about the need to stop glorifying busy, but I'm also really guilty of falling into that trap when I get overexcited or, like I'm a really ambitious person and I get lots of ideas and things I want to do. And I'm guilty of, not practicing what I preach, basically. So I'd love to know, where you're at the moment, if you're listening to this podcast episode somewhere in the future and you've listened to it before and whether it was a good reminder for you. But ask yourselves those questions. Where in your life or business are you filling space just to be busy? Where are you pushing yourself when actually a pause would serve you better? What would it look like if you gave yourself permission to not be doing all the time? Because like I said, that's something I've done a lot in my business recently and it has been so powerful. And I am so looking forward to seeing the impact that it's going to make, not just on my business, but on me and my happiness and my health and all of those things. I think this ties into something I've been on a long journey on, and I think it's kind of a never-ending journey, really, for all of the reasons that I just said, around redefining success on my terms. And I want you to just take some time to think about redefining success on your own terms. Honestly, one of the biggest mindset shifts I've had since I walked out of my job without another one to go to, my employed job back 19, is that success isn't about how much I can cram into my days. It isn't about how busy I am. It's about whether I'm living in a way that aligns with my values and that actually makes me happy more than it makes me sad. So for me, that means taking breaks when I need to, spending time with my kids without feeling guilty about work, putting boundaries in place so that I limit distractions whilst I'm with my kids so I don't feel guilty about neglecting work because it works both ways. And also so that I don't get irritated with my kids whilst I'm with them because I'm distracted by a work notification, which happens if I allow that to. It's also about not chasing numbers for the sake of it. So like I said, running my podcast in the way that I run it, I know means that it will impact the amount of downloads I have and, numbers will drop off a cliff at certain times of the year. And I'm okay with that because as long as I can look at it and go, oh yeah, well, it was a school holiday then. So of course I got less downloads. Success for me and success on my own terms absolutely means not chasing numbers for the sake of it, which the world of social media can really, really drag you into, even when you're, I was going to say even when you're like me, but even when you're quite aware of that, it's just easy to be sucked into it. So it's about giving myself the space to recognize that and make changes when I need to. And most of all, in terms of business, it's about creating a business that fits my life, not the other way around. So what I'm doing is for me and for my life. It's about me having asked myself those questions and me answering those questions. It doesn't mean what I'm saying in here is what you have to do. You might want to take inspiration from it, and I'd absolutely love to know if you do. But it's about you taking time to think about those questions and answer those questions for yourself. Because, and this is another thing I say a lot, we did not choose to run our own business to be our own worst bosses. And do you know what? Running a business is really, really hard. So my goodness, we need to make the most of the perks that come with it and take the benefits that come with it. And that means sometimes stepping away, sometimes not being productive, and sometimes saying, do you know what? That can wait. Because you know what? The world doesn't end. The business doesn't collapse. The important things still get done. And this is really important to tell myself, because sometimes when I get carried away with myself, it's not actually because I'm being a martyr, and it's not because I'm like, oh, I always have to be doing this. It's because I'm dead excited about stuff and I want to do more things. And I have to check in with myself and go, do you know what? You can do that, but possibly just not right now, because you're going to wear yourself out and you're going to miss all of the bedtimes throughout the week. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't always want to do the kids' bedtime, but I do want to do it more than I don't. So yeah, it's about checking in on yourself and remembering, like I said, the important things still get done and nothing burns to the ground if you take a moment to pause and to rest. So as I wrap up this season of the podcast, I want to leave you with a little challenge. What is one way you can embrace not doing this week? What is one way, or where is there space that you can find time to do nothing? And if it's the first time you're doing it, you're going to find it really hard. I'm still at the point I recorded this, still finding it quite hard to do that, but I'm doing it more and actually starting to enjoy it a little bit too much. I don't know whether I want to end up being a kept woman. I don't. I love my business and I love all of that, but it has made me think about how much I work. So yeah, that's your challenge. What's one way you can embrace not doing this week? Where is some space that you can find to do nothing? Maybe it is I say as small as, but this can be a really huge thing. Maybe it's taking a proper lunch break instead of eating at your desk. Maybe it's deciding that good enough is enough instead of endlessly tweaking that Instagram post or that idea that you're working on. Good enough is enough. Maybe it's stepping away from your work earlier than usual and not feeling bad about it. Maybe it's starting a little bit later and doing what I've been doing recently, where I've started starting work about 20 minutes later so that I can go for a walk after the school run and not feel bad about it. Whatever it is, give yourself permission to slow down. And whatever it is, it doesn't have to start big. It can be taking an afternoon or a day off and doing nothing, or it can be one of those things that I was talking about just now. But like I said, whatever it is, give yourself the permission to slow down, to breathe, to rest, because you don't have to earn it. You deserve it, and you get to decide when you want it and when you need it, simply because you're a human being. You are not a machine. So that's it from me this episode, and that's it from me this season. If this episode resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. As always, I may take a little bit longer to get back to you because I will be on school holidays, but I will get back to you and I will love to see the message. So drop me a DM over on Instagram or share this episode with someone else who needs to hear it. And if you want to stay in the loop for when the next season is starting again, make sure you hit subscribe so that it comes straight into wherever you are listening and you get notified for when the new episode goes live. But until then, take care, prioritize rest, and remember, we need to stop glorifying being busy. You don't always have to be doing. Thank you so much for listening to Show Up and Be Heard, but please don't go without telling me your name. I genuinely love meeting new people and making new connections. So if you don't already, I'd love it if you'd come find me on Instagram, LinkedIn or Facebook and drop me a message to say hello and let me know what you thought of the episode. The link to all my socials are in the show notes. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode or found it useful, then I'd really appreciate it if you could take just a few minutes to give it a review on whatever platform you are listening on, because every one I get really does make me do a little squeal and a big happy dance. Finally, more than anything else, please always remember, realizing that you're not actually meant to do this stuff alone is the first step to making it easier. So I'll see you next time.